We have an update in the most recent accusations of anti-Semitism directed toward presidential candidate RFK Jr., this time for a tweet in which he used the so-called 1488, the 14 words that are a part of Nazi, like a lingo that is known for people within that community, and 88 standing for HH. The eighth letter of the alphabet is H, Heil Hitler. He gave a response to Jimmy Dore in a recent interview explaining what he had to say and what he thought of these accusations and whether they were in good faith. Let's take a listen.
Those numbers came from Gavin DeBecker, who runs the premier security agency in the country, and he did my negotiations with the Secret Service, and the Secret Service. His first contact with them was 88 days prior to I think it was the 21st of July or whatever, when Mayorkas wrote me back. And so those numbers I got from him, I didn't, invent those numbers. But it's what's ironic about this, Jimmy, is that these are people who have been accusing me of being a conspiracy theorist.
So notably in that section, he did not get into some of the claims that the numbers themselves, the 14 and the 88, didn't actually track to the amount of time that had passed since he had made his request for personal security.
Shocking.
The likes of which is allotted to presidential candidates after a certain time of them being in the race. Then we have a little bit more of that clip. Let's take a look.
Maybe one out of every 20, 25 comments. Okay, I'm guessing. And I think if you went on there, particularly during certain periods, are people saying, you better wear a bulletproof vest, you better not go near the grassy knoll, you better, they're going to kill you, et cetera, et cetera. Because of my family history, you have a broad swath of the American public who understands that, there is a risk for me in doing this enterprise. And yet somehow somebody in the White House has made a determination that that's not a risk. And I get death threats all the time, which is not unusual for me. I've gotten those all of my life, and I get, very, very sort of violent, menacing communications from the public.
So, the issue of him being denied Secret Service protection is, almost something else. I think it's very fair for him to, be concerned about that. What did you make of his explanation
But the issue with that is that the fact check says that Secret Service protection isn't allotted until I think it's 140 or something like that days before the election, which would have been this time next year.
Right.
So he seems to have been confused about that, and there wasn't any.
Yeah. So RFK Jr. is going around the country bitching about the Secret Service and basically implying that they're trying to enable his assassination by refusing to give him special protection. Which no other candidate, by the way, is currently receiving. It's not like Marianne Williamson has Secret Service and RFK doesn't. Obviously, that would be a scandal. But the only presidential candidates that currently are afforded Secret Service protection are the former president, Donald Trump, and the current president, Joe Biden. So it's actually hilariously deeply conspiratorial of RFK to be going around here acting like he's being snubbed and that he's being denied this Secret Service protection. Again, implying that the government is somehow trying to enable his assassination or something by refusing him this protection, when in reality, that protection wouldn't even kick in until this time next year, like a whole fucking year from now. So he doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about here. He goes around talking about how the government killed his uncle and his dad, and now he wants the government to protect him from themselves.
How'd it work out for your old man? I'm
right.
just saying.
Yeah, it's like you want the government to protect you from the government, make sure the Secret Service can stop the other Secret Service agents from assassinating you. Is that what you're really getting at? Wouldn't you just be better off with private security, given how paranoid you are about being assassinated by the government? And for good reason, by the way. I'm not saying he has no good reason to be paranoid about stuff like that, given what happened to his family members. But I still think it's pretty hilarious that not only is he completely wrong, he doesn't even know what he's talking about. Secret Service protection is not allotted for presidential candidates until 140 days before the election. That's not until this time next year. Second of all, you want protection from the people that you're scared of murdering you? That makes no sense at all.
It's also just clear. One, nobody thinks that you're important enough or going to be successful or enough of a tangible threat for them to risk icing you in broad daylight when all you've done is fucking run your mouth about, oh god, I'm just as big of a threat as my daddy. I'm going to be like, are you fucking kidding me? Right? Which isn't even how we talk.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, this is about to get pretty intense. Bri and Robby, not on the same page here.
A correction in that at the time on Jimmy Dore's show. I'm not sure if Jimmy was aware of that or not, but it would have been good to see him confront the allegations that he simply is wrong and that this isn't a conspiracy to deny him Secret Service protection. It's simply that he misunderstood when that Secret Service protection usually attaches. So that's that part of it. To the first part of it, I think it's a little frustrating to not hear the criticism that yes, 1488, it might just be sometimes there's coincidences. It might just be two random numbers. And of course, it would be unfair to smear him over two random numbers. And that's, of course, what he was told by this mega donor, Gavin de Becker, who was, of course, in the news for contributing about half of his huge election pool to his super PAC. But the thing that has made so many people skeptical about the 1488 and think it's not just a coincidence is that it was not, in fact, 88 days since he made the request for Secret Service. It had, in fact, been something like 57 days. So the question now becomes, okay, we speculated earlier this week, was it just the person who was writing the tweet who was injecting these numbers? Maybe he was being undermined by someone on the campaign. Now that he's pulled Gavin de Becker in.
Yeah, and that's the other real kicker. It wasn't even 88 days, and it wasn't like it was 87 days or 89 days or something that you could easily confuse. It was like 54 or some shit. So I'm sorry, but if you want to call everyone else a conspiracy theorist for assuming that your Nazi dog whistle was in fact a Nazi dog whistle, then you have to come with some sort of an explanation as to where the fuck you got those numbers from. Like, I'm sorry, but that's a
weeks
pretty
after
random...
you said Jews were immune to COVID.
Yeah, and that's
I don't care who you're hanging out with.
Yeah, it's like one day he's going over talking about how amazing Israel and how they can do nothing, how Israel can do nothing wrong. And my best friend Rabbi Shmuley, who Newsweek called the most important rabbi in the world, you know, I'm hanging out with all these people. And then in the next breath, he's posting Nazi dog whistles, talking about how the Jews fucking are immune to COVID and all this crazy stuff. It's so hilarious. But yeah, like, where the fuck did you get those numbers? If it was only 56 days, then who came up with those numbers? Are you?
Oh, I know who came up with those fucking numbers, Gavin, and so do you. That's what the whole point of this is, right? That's what the whole point of this is. Who, if it was the Gavin de Becker guy that tweeted that, then fine, fuck him. That guy is a Nazi dog whistler. Okay. But the other thing that I wanted to point out that I think is maybe more important is that, you know, when we talk about how this dude's doing anti-Semitic dog whistles like crazy, and then also championing Israel, this shows the kind of marriage between this certain kind of like white supremacist, you know, evangelical Christian ideology of which they are ruthlessly supportive of the nation of Israel. They want, you know, them to have control of Jerusalem. So therefore, i.e. the United States has control of Jerusalem. We have an embassy, all of this kinds of stuff, right? It is actually a huge mission of the rabid money evangelical elite in this country. Like, you think they've put their backs into abortion? You have no fucking idea what they've put their backs into for the fucking, you know, militarization of Israel. And those same people are 100% anti-Semitic. They are 100% anti-Semitic. They will start telling you the like timeless anti-Semitic line that like the Jews killed Jesus and that, like, you know, they have to fucking repent and all kinds of stuff, which is ridiculous. If you go back in time and you look at whoever the fuck Jesus might have been, he was probably killed by Romans if he existed at all. But that's neither here nor there, and that doesn't fucking fit their narrative, right? Which is that the Jews run everything and that they killed their king and all kinds of shit. And that's, it sounds absolutely absurd because it is, but that's what they literally believe. And that's the lane that RFK has found for himself, the home wedged in there with the anti-vax shit. It's all there and it all makes sense. It's just he should be running as a Republican and he's running as a Democrat because he has the Kennedy last name. And boy, if he has no idea what he's doing, he has to know, because he might be very dumb, but even a dumb person has to see how blatant this is, how orchestrated and calculated this is. And I think that a lot of it is just the fact that he's caught up in the fact that he's so desperate to have a legacy. He sees that he's done absolutely nothing but embarrass his family name his entire life and career. And, you know, now he's starting to think about mortality, and he's starting to think about all the things that his father and uncle accomplished. And yeah, sorry, bro. But now becoming a fucking anti-vax, you know, Nazi, not my fucking problem anymore. Fuck you.
Into this billionaire donor, is it the case that Gavin de Becker purposefully or accidentally put out this 88 number when it wasn't, in fact, either was he just unaware that the number 88 wasn't the number of days since he had made the request, or is now the implication shifting to him as being the one that's purposefully injecting this kind of Nazi?
I mean, if anyone injected Nazism, it was the person who wrote the tweet.
But that's not what RFK Jr. is saying. RFK Jr. is specifically saying in that clip that the 88 number came from Gavin de Becker.
Well, right, but let's say Gavin de Becker, whoever this person is, wanted to get those, how would he have known RFK Jr. was going to tweet and a single tweet containing both of those numbers, right? That's so far-fetched to me to think that he told him that so that he would put that in a tweet. I think that's totally ridiculous. I think that's absurd on its face. The person, if anyone did this, is the person who wrote the tweet.
Campaigns, especially insurgent campaigns, can be very small. This person, Gavin de Becker, I mean, he's contributed substantially, overwhelmingly to his campaign, to RFK Jr.'s campaign. Of the $9.8 million he's reported to have solicited, $5 million came from Timothy Mellon, as we discussed, a longtime GOP donor who gave $1.5 million to a Trump-aligned group last fall. And most of the rest of the super PAC's funding through the end of June came from Gavin de Becker, an author and consultant who reported giving the group $4.5 million. Now, it does not seem implausible to me that someone who has that much financial support of a campaign isn't given access and input into the tweets that should be put out and the messaging that should be put out and draft messages. We have been talking at length about RFK Jr.'s relationship with Rabbi Shmuley and the extent to which his talking points around Israel-Palestine seem to be copy and pasted from, as Marianne put it,
88 number from this guy. But for this to have any kind of potential Nazi undertones, it has to have the 14 and the 88. That's not true.
The 14, the 88 is used.
I mean, I was born in 1988. 88 is my
God,
birthday.
Are you fucking kidding me, Robby? Are you fucking kidding me? To be honest, Robby just trumped himself for the dumbest thing he said all week. I thought it was the tweet that he made about how Donald Trump can't be indicted for just speaking, as if crimes like fraud and RICO the RICO laws weren't invented to fucking put people in jail for fucking ever for just talking about crimes and shit. Yeah, that happens, buddy. The expert over here on the Rising. But just it's crazy how he feigns being the densest person in the world whenever it's fucking convenient for him. He's willing to extrapolate and go to any end when it makes his libertarian argument to be like, well, but then he'll just play dense as a fucking rock. Well, we don't know. I mean, 1988, 88, Tony Gonzalez, Chiefs player, Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? How do we even know what he was referencing?
88.
Yeah,
it's not. I could tweet. I'm not these are not Nazi undertones. It's just reality.
No, of course
it doesn't. No, I don't think it has the weight unless it's paired with the 14. And he didn't. And that was just in the tweet. It's not. He didn't say he got the that Gavin de Becker told him it was a 14-day turnaround.
That didn't say it wasn't 14 and 88. It was just an 88 and then a 14 and that is 14 and 88, but not how he wrote it. You know what I mean, bro? It's just 14 and 88. It had nothing to do with the 14 and the 88. It was 88 and 14. Know what I'm saying?
If you want to patently dismiss this, you can patently dismiss this. I'm interested in talking about why people might be skeptical. And the reason people might be skeptical is that it didn't say 888. It didn't say 888. It didn't say 8. It said 2 8s, which separate and apart from 14 absolutely is a no Nazi symbol. Now, 88 does come up naturally, but the question is why this person is giving, Gavin de Becker is giving an 88 number when, and this is a crucial point that no one is engaging with. It wasn't 88 days. It was not 88 days. It's a number that's being pulled out of the ether. So is Gavin DeBecker going to say, oh, I misunderstood, it wasn't 88 days, or this is the point at which we were calculating from that gave us the 88 number? Okay, fine. But that's what I would have liked to see come out in this interview. And I'm not bringing this up to say I know that this is intentional, but these are the kinds of questions that, if asked, could have helped clarify things and exculpate RFK Jr. Unfortunately, he hasn't spoken to the actual issue that's causing people to be suspicious, which is, where did these numbers come from? That's all I'm saying. I think that we need to have some reporting out or an explanation from the people that he's now said were involved, like Gavin DeBecker or himself. Why did we get these numbers? Who drafted the tweet?
That would have been helpful to know literally who wrote the tweet, and is that person aware that if you stick 1488 in a tweet, it will make some people think you're gesturing at.
And did that person have any, contact with Gavin DeBecker or his team? And was he involved at all in providing language for the tweet? I mean, this is that. If you wanted to get rid of this, that's the way to do it. That's the way to clean the slate. And that's why sometimes journalists can be very helpful to politicians if they ask the right questions and get the right stuff out on the record. I think we're still waiting for that to assume that people. Look, the reality is there are a lot of bad faith actors who are never going to take RFK Jr. seriously and believed any number of smears of anti-Semitism that I think were not substantiated and true. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, and they're never going to be convinced no matter what he says about this. And so I understand that some of his perhaps blasé attitude in the interview with
What? Oh, yeah, I know anything, but people are just going to buy the mainstream narrative that he's anti-Semitic. Do you mean when he keeps coming out and suing and saying anti-Semitic shit, Briahna? That's why people think that. Like, we're not the mainstream media, okay? But if I see you in a fucking video where you're like, well, then I'm really concerned because I think COVID was only made to target the blacks and the whites. Who it wasn't made to target was the Jews and the Chinese. Yeah, that sounds innocuous. That doesn't sound like any dog whistling to me. I don't understand how you could be worked up about the 88-14 thing, which I obviously am worked up. I know for a fact that this dude is flirting with the anti-Semitism. I just don't see the need to be like, oh yeah, let's still take this guy seriously. Like, why? Why do we need to still take this guy seriously at all? At all. Everything about him is a fucking joke. He's a Nepo baby with no credentials, and he's honestly spouting some of the most ridiculously dangerous rhetoric known to humankind right now. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you want to say, oh, this is just some fucking crazy coincidence, of course he's innocent. That was an unintentional Nazi dog whistle that he posted. Okay, well, how about the fact that this dude is funding his campaign with Trump donor money? How about the fact that he doesn't even support Medicare for all? How about the fact that he's a bloodthirsty supporter and defender of Israel's apartheid and their genocide of Palestinian people? Like, there's so many reasons to not take this guy seriously. It just blows my mind that there's anyone on the left that is still taking this guy seriously, that's giving him any sort of, like charitability whatsoever, because he's completely and thoroughly discredited himself on basically every issue at this point. I mean, and again, even like with the Secret Service thing, like complaining about how the Secret Service isn't giving him protection, implying that they're fucking trying to enable his assassination. Like, I'm not like simping for the fucking government or the Secret Service or whatever, but isn't that just kind of a window, like an insight into how like conspiratorial and paranoid this guy is, and how he doesn't actually know what the fuck he's talking about? He's going out here acting like he's being persecuted and acting like he's the victim of all of this censorship and all this. It's like, meanwhile, no one gives a fuck, bro. You're a fucking sideshow circus act that's only being taken seriously by Fox News. It's only being taken seriously by deranged Trump supporters that want you to be Trump's VP. You're not a threat to the establishment. You're not a threat to Joe Biden. You're a fucking clown. And that's why only right-wingers like you. That's why only Trump donors want to support your shitty fucking campaign. And it's just time to stop taking this guy seriously. It's time to stop giving him charitability. He knows what he's doing. He's not a child. And he needs to be defeated.